Talk about facts regarding blood types, shall we? Yes, we shall. So, Japan has a pseudoscientific theory that believes that blood type dictates personality, long since debunked. What are the three rarest blood types? B negative, AB negative, and AB positive. These are the facts. What blood type is the unhealthiest? According to the American Heart Association, AB and AB blood types are associated with a greater risk of heart attack due to coronary artery disease than type O blood. In particular, people with AB blood appear to have the highest risk of heart disease. There is no such thing as a lucky blood type. Golden blood type is just that there are only about 50 people with this particular type of blood, which is the Rh null. And you don't want that blood type because there's only 9 active donors in the world for those 50 people. So if they get hurt, they are quite effed. The oldest blood type is type A, and it gave rise to mutations in A and B. Go away. I have several alarms set up in my studio. Chances are higher you'll live longer if you have type O blood. Experts think your lowered risk of disease in your heart and blood vessels may be one reason for this. People with B-type blood are at the highest risk for diabetes. People without O blood type have the highest risk of heart disease, AB or AB. What blood type do Native Americans have? All major ABO blood alleles are found in most populations worldwide, whereas the majority of Native Americans are nearly exclusively in the O group. Okay, now let's just go to blood type conspiracy theory. It really should be called pseudo-theory because they never meet the scientific criteria for the definition of the word theory. It winds up. There's not one conspiracy theory out there, in fact, that's actually a theory. They don't even meet the standards for hypothesis. Well, they seem to be on to the having rhesus negative blood does not mean you're descended from aliens. Rhesus negative blood is pretty rare and scientists are not sure exactly where it comes from. So does this mean it was injected into our genetic heritage by visitors from outer space? No, it does not. According to an unusual claim circulating in the dark corners of social media, and they are dark, some people may be aliens and not even know it. Ooh, you can be more special than a human being. You know, it's a really interesting feature of ego weakness in this crowd, in that they're always trying to be something more than human beings. Are you ashamed of being a human being? And why would that be? The evidence they claim is in their blood. More specifically, people with the rhesus negative blood type may be descended from extraterrestrials. So what's going on here? The aliens did it? A TikTok video currently doing the rounds shows a clip from the History Channel's 2009 series Ancient Aliens, which explored how extraterrestrials may have been visiting our planet for millions of years. In the clip, a range of, quote, experts, unquote, explain how these celestial visitors could have meddled with our genetic heritage, either through interbreeding or deliberate genetic engineering, which left a small portion of the world with a relatively rare blood type, rhesus Rh negative blood. This blood type only appears in about 15% of the entire global population, and has been a source of interest among scientists and medical professionals since it was first identified in the late 1930s. The reason for this, save for its rarity, is that we do not currently know where it comes from. This apparent gap in our knowledge has allowed some theorists to insert their own ideas for how the blood type came to be, for example, through external intervention. It's a wonderful example of the, quote, aliens of the gaps, unquote, argument, a variation of the, quote, God of the gaps, unquote, argument used by creationists where a phenomenon is credited to a deity if there's no agreed explanation for it. Although this claim lacks any actual evidence, it is presented as an intriguing possibility through a typical rhetorical sleight of hand. This involves meshing the views of scientists and other experts with non-experts in a way that makes them look like they are all contributing to the same conversation when they're not. In this instance, the professor of anthropology provides a brief overview of the science behind Rhesus negative blood, but is then sidelined by authors of alien-related ideas, who add their spin to the discussion without challenge. The effect makes it look like the viewer is watching a discussion of equally valid perspectives when they are not. What is Rh negative blood? Karl Landsteiner and Alexander Weiner played the most significant role in identifying the Rhesus blood type. In the early 20th century, Landsteiner had also made important contributions to our understanding of blood types as he identified the ABO system. But then in 1937, he and Weiner turned their attention to a perplexing issue related to blood transfusions. They were trying to figure out why some people experienced adverse reactions when receiving blood from certain donors. Through their experiments, the two scientists identified a new antigen on the surface of red blood cells, which they named the rhesus factor, or Rh factor, after the rhesus macaques used in the experiments. That's why they're called Rh. It's named after the rhesus monkeys that were used in the experiments, not aliens. Idiots. In essence, the discovery meant that blood types can be characterized as either Rh positive or Rh negative, a factor that doubled the number of known blood types from 4, A, B, AB, and O, to 8. For most people, whether they are Rh negative or positive will not be a concern unless they require a blood transfusion. There does not appear to be any other significant differences resulting from the blood type, though some have hypothesized that it may affect resistance to certain parasites, especially the one that causes toxoplasmosis. Some have also claimed that Rh negative people have higher IQs, are more sensitive to the environment, and may have lower body temperatures and blood pressure, among other things. But this is far from universally accepted. The Rh blood group can play an important role in fatal blood diseases, especially erythroblastosis fetalis, which can develop in fetuses and newborns if an Rh negative mother gives birth to an Rh positive child. In this case, the mother's antibodies will attack the child's blood. It is possible this seemingly weird phenomenon is what has caused the alien explanation to appear so compelling, as on the surface, at least, it looks like the mother is rejecting the baby as if they were from two different species. In reality, the baby has different DNA from its mother, which leads to complications during pregnancy. The baby has different DNA from its mother. So if not aliens, where does Rh negative blood come from? Ooh. At the moment, there's no clear consensus on why some people are Rh positive and others are not. As mentioned above, Rh negative blood is quite rare. Around 15% of Caucasians are negative, while only 8% of black people and only 1% of Asians are. But before we try to squish aliens into this explanatory gap, there are some simpler, however less sensational, explanations worth considering first, and they all have to do with genes which are prone to mutating naturally. A good example here is eye color. Originally, human eyes were brown, but around 6 to 10,000 years ago, a genetic mutation slipped in which turned off the ability to produce enough melanin to sustain this color in some people. This led to the emergence of other colors such as blue, green, and hazel eyes. The eye color is not the result of a particular pigment, but rather the relative absence of higher concentrations of melanin to make them brown. The fact that blue eyes have survived down successive generations has led some researchers to posit that blue eyes carried some evolutionary benefit, though they're not sure what exactly. A similar phenomenon may be going on with our blood. In 2012, a study published in the journal Human Genetics tried to find out whether there was an advantage to being Rh negative that would have kept it present in our genetic heritage, despite it sometimes leading to difficult pregnancies. They did not find any clear benefit, leading them to conclude that, if one did exist, then it occurred in our evolutionary past and has no significance today, or maybe the blood type occurs due to random change. Returning to the parasite hypothesis, although we do not know for certain whether having Rh negative blood does affect our defense against toxoplasmosis, we do know that similar variations in blood can have comparable benefits. For instance, carriers of sickle cell anemia, SCA, a genetic mutation that affects red blood cells, are known to be resistant to malaria. It is important to note that only the carriers of the disease benefit from added protection. Unfortunately, those with SCA do not have greater resistance. But the idea here is that the benefits of being a carrier of SCA and the protection it offers outweigh the costs of having children who develop SCA, especially in areas where malaria is common. It is likely that something similar is going on with Rh negative blood, though we are not yet sure what. It may be less intriguing than believing that aliens somehow gave some people different blood, but it makes more sense. This is from 2016. This conspiracy theory, which is precisely what it is, has been around for quite some time, and because of that, it has been debunked repeatedly by experts in genetics. So, unless the person talking to you about this is an expert scientist in genetics, they're probably going to pass on some really bad information to you that isn't true. They may or may not be aware that it's a lie. The people that go for this kind of thing tend not to be the kind of people that care about things like truth. Just something to keep in mind. Why are there so many crazy theories about negative blood types? There are a bunch of weirdo sites out there about their origin by Cecil Adams. This cartoon. That's too. Okay, here's Katrina. My blood type is A negative. I've heard this can cause pregnancy issues, so I googled Rh negative blood and ran across a bunch of weirdo sites with theories about the origin of negative blood types and some online communities with seriously racist undertones. Where did all this crazy mythology surrounding blood types come from? That sure is some netherworld of dodgy disinfo you inadvertently spelunked into, Katrina. No place you'd want to find yourself without up-to-date antivirus software, an airtight pop-up blocker, and ideally a strong stomach. Many links concerning Rh negative blood look kosher enough in your search results, but when clicked, release a flood of wide-eyed theories about ethnic migration, blood type-based dating tips, and offers to trace your ancestry back to extraterrestrials angels, or lizards. You gotta be some kind of stupid to believe this shit, man. Come on. Various stalwart rationalists, bless them all, have labored above and beyond to debunk this stuff. But I'll go out on a limb here and assume that none of my readers actually suspects some Randy E.T. begat great-grandpa. Instead, as you say, the question is where these crypto-hematologists emerged from and what their deal is. On examination, they generally seem to be people who had certain theories about how the world worked long before they learned of Rh negativity, and then, well, they smelled blood. Now, blood can seem like a loaded concept. I guess essence of life, symbol of tribal identity, beverage of vampires, etc. So maybe even the otherwise level-headed get weird about it sometimes, but come on, this is science. The term Rh factor is commonly used to refer to the presence of a certain protein, the D antigen, on the surface of an individual's red blood cells. If you've got it, and most of us do, you're Rh positive. The slim minority of humans without, Rh negative. It's always good to know your blood type, but particularly when you're pregnant. Things can get tricky when an Rh negative mother is carrying an Rh positive fetus. If she's been exposed to Rh positive blood before, typically via a prior pregnancy, she'll produce antibodies that can attack her helpless kiddo like it's an infection. As with most of our species' biological oddities, scientists believe that Rh negative blood initially resulted from a DNA mutation that evidently served some sort of evolutionary purpose that research hasn't quite yet nailed down. Having the gene for Rh negativity seems to improve resistance to the parasitic condition called toxoplasmosis, which may hint at an answer, but no one knows for sure. No one knows for sure. 5 magic words that will forever summon swarms of crackpots from dankus cyberspace. Some try to tell you that the children of the Nephilim, an antediluvian race of fallen angels and or giants, casually mentioned in Genesis, still walk among us. You shall know them by their Rh negative blood. Others will list the, quote, reptilian, unquote, physical characteristics Rh negative folks possess, including extra vertebrae and lower than normal body temperature. Yet others want to talk about the AB negative blood supposedly found on the Shroud of Turin. But 2 major sets of opportunistic cranks stand out, each armed with their own theories about Rh negativity. The first crew is relative, and by the way, journalists, could you actually learn what the scientific definition of theory is before you use it? Because as it's used here, it is grammatically incorrect. Crackpots don't have theories, they have pseudo-theories, pretend theories. Nothing that they offer meets the criteria for the definition of theory in science. Absolutely none of them. The first crew is relatively benign, of a type familiar to all battlers against pseudoscience. Those who for more than half a century have recast the divine beings of the world's religions as, quote, ancient astronauts, unquote, crediting extraterrestrials with constructing the pyramids and inspiring the stoneheads of Easter Island. We can't explain it, so it will fill in the gap with aliens. You've seen their paperback Bible in thrift stores or on your favorite hippie uncle's bookshelf, Chariot of the Gods, by Eric von Daniken, who, the blood type fans excitedly insist was Rh negative himself. But for some scholars of this ilk, aliens weren't here just to jumpstart our civilization. They manipulated us on a cellular level, creating, according to UFO-centric author Nick Redfern, quote, a slave race to dutifully mine gold. The evidence? You guessed it, Rh negative blood. You're more likely, though, to encounter the suggestion that Rh negative blood makes its possessor superior to others. Back to that old, I don't want to be just human, Mommy. I want to be something more than human. Vanity, vanity. Sometimes this leads to charming kookdom. The Basque people have an extraordinarily high Rh negative rate of 25 to 35%, which entrenches that strange subset of Bascophiles who believe them to be a magical race that built Stonehenge and traveled regularly to North America centuries before the age of exploration. Unfortunately, this viewpoint attracts far nastier sorts, too. Forever on the lookout for some minor genetic distinction between ethnicities to bolster their worldview, certain white supremacists are tickled a melanin deficient pink about the fact that about 15% of people of European descent will tend to be Rh negative, while less than 1% of Africans, Asians, and Native Americans will. Thus, predictably, you'll see assertions that Rh negatives have a higher IQ, and that the fair-skinned Caucasian traits of Northern Europeans were caused by the mutation. Stray far enough into the muck, and you'll find, quote, proof, unquote, that Jesus was Scandinavian, with AB negative blood natch. The ego, my God. And everything in service to their egos. Back here in reality, I've got good news for Rh negative moms-to-be. As long as you discuss potential Rh factor issues with your OBGYN early enough, complications can usually be avoided. If, however, your doc mentions anything about ancient astronauts or Nephilim, make sure you get a second opinion. Yeah, definitely do that. But this all comes from the human ego to be something more than human, and there's just a part of the human species of people who are so stupid and so vain that they are forever ensconced in Dunning-Kruger effect, because they're too stupid to understand just how fucking blisteringly stupid they really are. The others that aren't stupid are psychopaths, okay, who believe that they should be and want to be so desperately superior to somebody, anybody, they'll run around and find any old piece of trash information they can find that will support their racist agenda and claims. Guess who was also really into the whole blood type thing? Oh, a certain group of people during World War II, and some facsimile of them today, called Nazis. Yeah. So, if you come across the blood type people and they give you the willies, they should. And I would suggest you avoid them like the plague. See you later.